episode of Let's Be Real. I'm Tara.
I'm Sheri.
And this is the podcast where we just talk about mental health and all of its intricacies and the stuff we don't like, but a lot of the stuff we do like and we want to change and we want to do better. So that's important. While I am good for a complaint, let's actually work towards finding some solutions too.
Absolutely. I agree.
So today we could start right off the bat because I was really excited to get my my social media skills to work. And for those of y'all who follow us on Instagram at Let's Be Real, Sheri and Tara, we posted a couple of questions this past weekend of this recording, obviously a week later. But our first question was, what do you want out of a therapist? What makes a good therapist? And just from some of the responses, they were really good. So I'll read them. I won't say any names, but I'll read them word for word as we got them. For me, one who's focused on the root cause, brings it all back to me, tells it like it is.
Oh,
I know that last part resonates with
tells
us, Sheri.
it like it is. Good. All right. I'm on the right path then. That's good.
Yep. One of my favorite phrases I hear when I ask for feedback from my clients is, Tara, you call me on my shit. If you say those words directly to me, my ego and my that serotonin release just,
absolutely.
I feel so validated.
Like, oh, you got me
You
too.
get it.
That's good. I like that.
You get it. And then I'm actually pleased that I am calling bullshit. Because sometimes I can just be that over-validating and empathetic therapist, and I'm sure someone wants to hire that, but that's not necessarily going to be a change maker either.
No,
So
I agree.
I would love to call you on your shit, everybody.
We're here for you. Don't worry.
The next one listens, in parentheses, yeah, I know, duh, but also provides a neutral perspective or suggestions. So this
Thank
is that.
you.
It almost gets to that word advice, right?
Right. Okay. We're not allowed to call it advice, I guess, but I like that. Neutral suggestions, right?
Neutral perspective or suggestions.
Oh, yeah. I like it.
I like that too. I love the word neutral.
Yeah.
Neutrality is my thing. I'm a fan of the word average. Average is a good thing.
Right. We all cannot be above average people.
Right.
I'll call out my dad for that one real quick.
Let's go.
Because for Mother's Day one year, I got a book that said, "You are not special." Let's all go with that for just 1 second.
Let's unpack that.
Let's unpack that. No, not just personally for Sheri, but the idea was this gentleman spoke at a college graduation, and he was just saying how everybody pretends like their kids are special and more special than somebody else, right? Yeah, you're special to your parents, I hope, right? But we are not all extra special everywhere we go. So I love this idea of average. Like we're all just kind of getting through life, and that's life.
Yeah. I think average can be a very comforting concept,
Right.
right? If you're not excelling, it's fine.
Right.
That's not disordered. That's not problematic. It's have your moment where you're doing something really well and then be mediocre the rest of the time. And it's fine. It's fine.
Okay,
I'm a
right?
mediocre therapist most of the time. That's my average. And then when you have your sessions where you're like, we had a breakthrough, we're doing great, we discovered something, we're making this is one of those obvious, how much progress was just made in 45 minutes. Fantastic. That's not supposed to be every week, y'all.
Right, because you won't notice it when it happens.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And it can't be Christmas every day, right?
No. Oh, very on brand, Sheri. Good
Oh,
job.
thanks.
No, it can't be. It can't be. It's not going to be magical every day. I don't live at Disney World. And those who work at Disney World it's not magical every day.
Right. That goes right back to this statement that everybody likes to use. I just want to be happy. I want to be happy. I want to be happy. You cannot be happy 24 hours a day, every day of your life. Let's be real people, right? That you cannot be happy every day.
Yeah.
You can't be in any one feeling all day long. It's just impossible. So let's just go with content. Is there anything wrong with being content?
Right. Right. And chasing happiness is a disappointing journey.
Absolutely.
It is.
That's an expectation we cannot meet.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Ooh, that was a nice one. Neutrality, y'all. Next one. I think a good therapist listens intently with an open and non-judgmental mind. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Love that. Openness.
Absolutely. Because let me tell you, they're coming to us for a reason, right? And if they feel like they're going to be judged the whole time, why would they talk to you?
Right.
You could go home and talk to your dad for that, or your mom, or right, or your best friend who's like, "You're with that guy still."
Yeah.
Really?
Are we still talking about him?
Yeah, I'm tired of hearing that. Right? Bring it to me. We'll talk about it. I will maybe say, okay, maybe we need to figure out something else. But I'm by no means judging you, because let me tell you, my house ain't clean.
There you go. I like that. I like that a lot. I appreciate that. And I think this taps into the same thing where your therapist doesn't have to be a good therapist just because they have the same lived-in experience as you.
Right. We're not in substance abuse. We're going to put that, right? That's why I'm not a substance abuse therapist.
Yeah.
Because I don't have that experience, but I also don't have to be bipolar to work with somebody who's bipolar. Correct. So there is a difference, right? Or if you have major anxiety, I don't have to have that as well.
So do you think in substance abuse, it pays off to be in recovery if you're working in recovery?
I think that's the overall presentation of how the system is. I don't know if that's necessarily the truth, because I personally don't have that history. And maybe that's because that makes me feel uncomfortable. Doesn't mean I don't work with anybody that has. I don't say, oh, you're an alcoholic, get out. I don't do that. But I don't live in my role is not as a substance abuse only therapist, which that'll be another topic, I guess, because
I think that would be
they don't go together.
I think that would be
they don't. Life is not that much compartmentalized, right?
Sure.
You have one without the other.
Sure.
Usually.
I think there is a big trend, especially living in South Florida, right? We're basically, I think we are the rehab capital of the country, if not the world.
Sadly.
I would like to check in on that statistic before.
It's pretty close, and it's not a good number. It's not a good distinction to have, let's just say.
Correct. And I think there is a big trend of the providers in those spaces, whether it's clinical or whether it's behavioral, in those spaces tend to be in recovery themselves.
Yes.
I don't see, it's not 100%, but there is a trend.
It's a large percentage. I don't have that number either, but you don't come to us for facts.
But I know, but peer work is obviously extremely important in substance abuse work. And there's a reason for that.
Right. And, that's becoming a really big thing in mental health as well. Peer work. And there needs to be more of that. And we need to appreciate that more and build that more. And I almost always refer to some type of peer work, whether it's groups or like connecting with NAMI, right?
National Alliance for Mental Illness.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. There's a lot of great peers out there.
We love it. Help each other out. Yeah. All right. So this will be the last one I share for what makes a good therapist. Makes it a safe place and helps you heal and grow. Straightforward. Absolutely. I love that. And the safe place aspect, I learned the value of that almost like building rapport, having literally a safe place of whether it's even virtual, you can still create safe place in a virtual setting.
Absolutely.
And allowing it to just be you press the start button or you walk through a door and all of a sudden you feel like it's this vulnerable, trusting space. And until you've experienced it, it doesn't make sense how an environment can be trusting, especially if your environment has been less than warm.
Right. I think that goes back to what we talked about. I don't remember which one now, but where we talked about whether you'd want to be fired or fire someone, right? It's okay if you don't feel that safety with that therapist. It's okay to say, you know what? It's okay. We can move on to somebody else.
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
Yes.
Right? Because just because I think we have a connection on the therapist side, I may be completely off. I may be reading you wrong, and that's okay. I'm, again, not a mind reader, and that's all right if I'm not your thing.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. And the two newest clients I had, meaning I had a first session with them, I didn't have a second, and that's not a problem.
It's not a problem.
Whatever you needed wasn't something I could provide, and no harsh words shared. It was just
right.
And I always respond with, you have my information. If there's anything I can connect you to, you have an idea of what my style is. You don't
absolutely
do not hesitate.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. So the second question we asked is, what do you not want out of your therapist?
Ooh, I like these.
I do too. I think we might just ask this every month or so, just check in with these answers. Okay. So got a few responses with this one too. So what we don't want, sit there and hold on. Let me read. Okay. I see what she's saying. Sit there and listen without proper redirection and solution finding. I don't need an ear. I need help.
Amen. Mm-hmm. That's all I have to say about that.
So this person isn't looking for what I usually offer, which is the validation and like, I'll ask what you need from me and she'll respond with, I need help. I need guidance. Give me this direction. And yes, we can do that. But if you're just going to let me listen to a vent, for some clients, I don't interrupt. So she would be upset with my style, which is fine.
No, but she may have needed to do that. Like, I will let you do that. Like I said in one of our first podcasts, I'll let you sit and vent for a few days or a few sessions, or even the first 30 minutes of the session. Because you got to get it out. You got to let me know what's going on. And otherwise I don't know what to respond to. But again, I'm not going to let you sit in my office and just vent.
Yeah.
That's not what you paid me for.
Correct. And I do remind them of that, right? So for the price you're paying are you getting your value?
Amen. Right. And are you getting the feedback you need?
Correct.
And it may not be what you like, but it is what you need, I believe. Okay.
Yep. And you know what? Now that I'm thinking and processing some of this out loud too, I've been a consumer of helplines before, whether they were chat or phone call. I just need to vent, and it's not something I'm going to call my therapist at 11 p.m. about. Just won't do it. So I'll use our services that we have, our resources. Right. Those are extremely validating. You can tell the type, like coming from our background, you can tell the type of coaching they get and the training they get. It's constant. Thank you for sharing. I see how frustrating that can be. I'm sorry you're going through this, And like every response is along that kind of
and you formula. Figure that's what you're looking for at that
I
point.
definitely wanted that at 11 p.m.
That's what you need, right?
I wanted, this sucks. Right. Let me see how much this sucks. It's okay that it sucks. So that was helpful, but that was free.
Right. Well, let me ask you that, because coming from different online platforms as a therapist, on those platforms that allow for texting at different times of the night and, and a kind of an understanding that if you're on that platform, you better respond within a certain amount of time. What are your feelings of so your client texting you, not on that platform, just in general?
So you bring up a good question. It was actually something I saw on Reddit recently, asking therapists what their opinion was on being accessible via email or text. And the answer was, it depends on the therapist, right? So I'm a therapist where you can text and email me. You have access to my stuff. In our first session, I tell you I'm accessible, but I'm not constantly available.
Agreed. If I'm not going to answer you at 2:00 in the morning,
correct,
I will answer you probably 10, 11 o'clock at night if I happen to look at my phone. I'm kind of bad about having my phone with me a lot, and I'll answer you in places that probably most therapists won't answer you. But I think that that's important for them to know that you're there if something's really happening that's going on, or you just need that handhold to say, I promise you're going to be okay till tomorrow. Yes. Right. Or do you need me to make a phone call for you? Do you need this? Right. That's kind of the social worker in me versus just the mental health side.
Same.
But I have never had anybody that's abused that. I've always had very respectful people that have said, okay, I hate to bother you at this time, but I just wanted to ask this. And I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah. Same. And I've had a couple of like texts and emails that I won't say should have, but could have been a session. And so sometimes I'll encourage, like, this sounds like we could probably have a conversation. Doesn't have to be a full session, but sounds like you could benefit from it. Some take me up on it. Some don't. Depends on the timing, financial circumstances, all of this stuff. Cause a lot of people are budgeting to make therapy work. But I'm so accepting of that, because things come and go. They're fleeting. And things like that, when things are interrupting, I'm also tracking patterns of how often you're reaching out to me in between session. Because when we start, we're immediately thinking about termination, right? We're immediately talking about, you could be a lifer with me. I'm not gonna fire a client unless they deserve to be fired, which can be a plethora of things, but it's not gonna be because you've reached your goals. If there's benefit to you talking to me and having access to me, that's not a reason to bump you off of my client load. But if we're talking about like, where are you using your resources? We're talking about these coping skills. Are you using them? Tell me how you use them and what happened before it got to the point of you texting me.
Right.
If we've been working together for a while,
right.
then that's something.
You know what? I'm about to ask this of this person. I just want to run it by you real quick. I just want to make sure that I'm not like going too far. Is this kind of in line with what we've been talking about? Absolutely. I get those texts every now and then. You know, I'm going to follow through with what you said. I promise, but blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah.
And then I really appreciate clients that text me like a day or two before a session. And they're like, I really want to make sure we talk about X, Y, and Z.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just using this as a point to have you help me stay on track in session in case I want to avoid it.
Okay. Yeah. I like that too. That's good.
Love that accountability.
Exactly.
So the next entry we have for what we don't want out of a therapist, remind them of their shortcomings or talk about yourself the entire time.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to either. Let's be honest. You came here for yourself. You didn't come here for me.
I think sometimes
for that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I think sometimes I won't say struggle because I'm aware of it when it happens. And then I'm like, Tara, we're just gonna pause and let them respond in their time. But sometimes I want to relate to people.
Well, I think sometimes you can, right? And I think that was another question we read on Reddit that somebody had talked about, like how much can you share with your therapist and how come I'm coming in and spilling it all out and they don't have to tell me anything about themselves?
It's a one-sided relationship a lot of the time, right?
Right. Well, I mean, I do have there's certain things that I'll say, or if somebody asks me, depending upon the question, I don't have any problem, but I don't say, oh, you know what, that happened to me. Let me tell you about it and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Go on for 10 minutes about some nonsense that they don't care.
That's facts. That's facts. Absolutely. I try not to do that. I try to relate it to something or use an example of someone in my life if it's not me. And it's not full self-disclosure because I'm trying to be very conscientious of that.
Right.
Self-disclosure meaning like I divulge my own diagnosis or, something I've struggled with that directly relates to the client. I try to be very conscientious of that. But some sideways, some parallels there.
Right.
I'll bring them up. I'll touch on them and,
right. It depends on the intention, right?
Exactly.
If I'm trying to get you to see that, you know what, I suffer with anxiety too. And this is not like so many people do, or, I think that's fair, right?
I use the word we a lot in therapy.
I do too. So people probably want to smack me after a while. They're probably like, we are not here having the problem. It's me, lady. Right.
I do it to try to separate from the I'm on an island by myself phenomenon of anxious-minded people, we, or people in recovery, we.
Right.
And I'm not directly connecting to me. I'm trying to connect to a group of people.
Right. Like I connect to women as in general a lot. And I apologize, ladies, but I take one for the team for us for a lot because I have a lot of men that will say a lot of things about what we do. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I apologize. I do that too. So we as women, we make some bad choices in relationships and how we talk and the things we respond to and the things we don't respond to. So I apologize for all of us to mankind. Just kidding.
We got to work on your apology, Sheri. Yeah. You don't need to apologize.
I know. You're right. I apologize for that. No, I'm just kidding.
I think that really touches on a lot though. I just want to build up that we as in you're not alone in having this pattern of thinking.
Yes.
And whether it's me you need to connect to when I say we, or it's this bigger population is irrelevant to me.
Exactly.
And I don't think me using we has ever led to a client directly asking me, well, is this something you've struggled? I think they've understood that it's me just creating a community out of it.
Right. I agree. So,
all right, we'll do a couple more. We have another one that says talk about themselves too much. So that seems to be a resounding thing. I'm going to be hyper aware of that now.
Absolutely. Right. Me too.
But that's a good thing. Talk about or relate to their own lived experiences with regularity. This is actually this is pretty common here.
Right.
Yeah. And another one says, judge me. I would hate to have a conversation with a therapist where that's a lesson I have to talk to them about. It's come up before, especially when I was working in a school setting, whether it was parents or teachers or even other counselors showing up and having judgments. And if they're one-on-one with me and they're talking about something that they struggle with and they want to come to me because I work well with that, like let's talk about like LGBTQ youth.
Right.
I did a lot of work with that in the schools. And I had a lot of people, adults in that space that were not as supportive.
Right. Exactly. It's like, this is not your platform for your other beliefs. You are not here for that reason. And if you can't separate that part, then you should not be in that position, especially if you're working with youth.
Those were several difficult conversations I had along those lines. Well, I'm trying to also not be judgmental, but taking that in, and I'm like, you're in a pretty impressive space to impose these beliefs and these thoughts.
Well, those people, I will be judgmental with them. The people who are being judgmental with the kids or with your clients. And you know what? Again, like we said before, that's why you're here, right? Because you don't feel comfortable with whatever those thoughts or those feelings or whatever it is you're experiencing. You need somebody who's going to listen with an open mind. And if you can't have that, then you shouldn't be a therapist. I apologize for all of those people who have done that, because granted, I am a very judgmental person. But when I walk into in my therapy, I turn that part. That's the part I can turn off.
For sure.
Because, I'm the one who loves to go and watch people for entertainment value.
Oh, I'm a reality TV binge junkie. So
I make fun of you, right? I make fun of your people that watch that stuff.
As you should. This is apparently I love the human condition so much that my spare time is spent watching and taking all that in.
So as I said before, my children say I'm a conundrum, right? But if I am going to come in and judge the client, then I should not be there, right? Because that's not the purpose.
1,000%.
I am judgy outside. My niece will tell me that constantly. And Sheri, you're so judgy. Well, we're humans. We judge people. But when you come in for that reason, I promise you, I'm not going to judge you, because that's not what you're looking for.
Right. Even there's so many stories swirling in my head.
Right.
There's one client, I'm not sure if she fired me or I fired her. It was a very mutual ending of.
That's great.
Like, neither of us, I was trying very hard to be respectful, but it was the humanness of being a person who practices therapy. This person was trying to push back on their child's boundaries, and me working with a lot of children, adult children and minors, imposing their own boundaries for their self-care and their mental health. That was a big platform for me. And so I was getting the other side of it. And oh my goodness, this is triggered.
No. Stop with the word.
But this is a story, it's going to stick with me for the rest of my career, because it was on app therapy too. So it wasn't very connected. It was our first session. It's all too easy to just press next, right?
Next therapist, please.
Which they did. Good for them. But they were looking for validation in the fact that they thought it was unfair that their adult child had imposed boundaries on them. And I said, I don't know the full story, right? I don't know your child. I'm only speaking with you. But let's get the full story. Let's understand where this is coming from. And the last thing she said to me was, you don't have kids, you'll never understand.
Oh, snap.
So with that statement, I don't know if I fired her or she fired me.
Yeah, you probably fired her with that statement. You don't have kids, you'll never understand. Okay. All right.
Okay.
That's rough. Sorry.
It was.
Yeah.
And what pains me a little bit is she'll easily find a therapist that'll validate that and will help her break those boundaries down. It's like,
so let's clarify the judgment versus non-validating of something.
For sure.
Because just because I validate something and I say, I understand that's really hard, right?
Yes.
And we've talked about this 10 times. I think I've said this before, right? If we've talked about this 10 times and we are working, I'm going to say, okay, so this may not be the nice way I say this. I may say, okay, so what part have we not listened to yet? Right? What part did you not hear when we've said this 10 times and you don't want to keep doing this, but you're still doing it? I'm going to challenge that. So there's a difference between being, I think, being judgmental and challenging or non-validating, right? At some point, I need to speak up and I need to say, I know that's what you really want to do. I know that's what we all end up doing, but let's try something different.
I think that's a really good distinction because there's a difference between empathy of like for that client I was just speaking to. That was really difficult for her to endure these boundaries.
Right.
And her instinct is to challenge them because she wants to get around them. They are very uncomfortable. That is absolutely a validating discomfort.
Right.
Or valid discomfort.
Because if you've been a parent for 18 years and felt like you're the one who's in control, and then all of a sudden they're 18 or maybe even 20 by the time we allow that maybe, but now I have no control.
Yeah.
It's really hard. They go off to college, they start going to the doctor by themselves, they start doing things by themselves, and the world tells us we have no more control.
Yeah.
But prior to 18, we are responsible for everything they do.
And I think something else that happens with parenting, I have a couple of clients that I'm working with now that have teen children. Parenting looks a lot different when you have a 3-year-old versus when you have a 16-year-old.
Absolutely.
So you have to transition.
But some people can't do that.
It's very difficult, right? Because being a protector feels really, really good when you're doing it well. And then to let go of some of that because they're going to have a license or they're going to want to go hang out with their friends by themselves. And it's not supervised play dates anymore. You can't go sit a couple rows behind them at the movie theater anymore.
Right, exactly. Now they have to make their decisions.
Or let me rephrase that. You can do those things.
But let me tell you, the helicopter ladies, it's not okay. It's not okay. Let your kid go.
You're not protecting your kid the way you think you are.
Right.
And that's just it's such a hard reality. I see my parents, because it's dads I work with too. I see them struggle with, oh, I shouldn't do this anymore, or I can't do this anymore. I don't like either of those words, but that's what they're telling themselves is, this isn't helping my parenting and my relationship with my child. But why do I still want to do it?
Right. Well, and that's why so many of our young adults have such a hard time because they're not let to experience failure and experience things on their own, and their parents taking their consequences from them.
Yes.
Right. If I at 16 make a decision to crash my car, because everything we do is a decision from the beginning to the end, right? I decided to put my foot down on that pedal and go faster. That was my decision. I didn't decide to crash it, but I did decide to do the behavior that was going to take me to a crash, right? So if I then as a parent come along and say, no, officer, don't give him a ticket. And I beg and I pay and I do all the things that, what we want to do is take that consequence from them because I don't want them to be forced to have this behind them forever. Well, now you just allowed for 10 more crashes because they didn't learn from that.
Right.
And when they go away to college, I'm use that one thing as an example. When they go away to college, they have so much anxiety because they've been pushed so hard for these programs that they have now. Push so hard to be the best at everything.
Yeah.
They go to school and you know what? You're not the best anymore because everybody else is the best too. And you're the bottom of the barrel. They don't know how to handle it. And it's so much stress.
Yeah.
Stop taking your stress away from your kids.
I deal with that a lot with athletes too. You're being raised to believe you're the best and you're excelling in your sport and in your hometown, at your high school, you are the cream of the crop. You get a D1, D2 offer to go play college athletics and you're going to get redshirted. You're not going to be started at the beginning of season.
How dare we?
It's a hard reality.
It is.
So there's a bit of an identity crisis that happens there too. But anyway, we're getting on.
Sorry, we just went in another lane.
Tangent.
But yes.
I loved that one because you and I can talk about parenting from completely different roles.
Well, right, because we all end up having to deal with the same consequence. right?
You mean working with parents and no matter what role we are in?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. This is,
I had to take that into a sarcastic
no,
lane.
oh my
I had
gosh.
to.
Yes.
Okay. So for the sake of time, can we jump into the Reddit story?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's right there in the same lane.
It is. So I did Sheri the great favor of introducing her to the wide world of Reddit. I am a Redditor.
Thanks for that.
Oh, you're so welcome. Who needs sleep when you can read stories on your phone for hours?
Just to
on
remember,
end?
people, turn off your notifications.
Turn them off. I do have all. If you text me, I have no idea until I open my phone.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So if I text back quickly, it's because I'm looking forward to your text message.
Oh,
don't you feel special?
Sweet. I do.
Okay. So this story I found yesterday, actually, at the time of this recording, and I went to pull it up and it's already deleted by the moderators of the subreddit. So the subreddit is Am I the Asshole?
Oh, I love it.
So it's a subreddit of people submitting stories and asking the question based on how I reacted, am I the asshole? And then us as Redditors, we get to just subscribe judgment.
Oh, and this is what we were talking about, comment culture. Yeah,
Comment
last
culture.
time.
And I have some comments for us too that I recorded. So
asshole comment culture, does that go together?
I think naturally, right? So it's deleted, but your girl screenshotted the whole thing.
Girl.
So I still have it. I'm not going to credit the Redditor because I think the whole thing is deleted. I'm just going to read the story. All right. So the title is, Am I the Asshole for Ending My Daughter's Therapy Appointments? And
I can't wait to hear this.
I know.
Come on, bring it on.
So there's a couple of edits to this too. So let me get started. Hello there. I'm the mother of a 15-year-old daughter. I notice that my daughter cries a lot, but won't tell me why. She promised me that nothing bad has happened to her. She just feels overwhelmed. I think it's because she doesn't spend enough time with her friends. My husband told me to put her in therapy. We also put my son, 10 years old, in therapy too. My son's therapist told me that he's doing well and has learned all the skills he needs, so we've ended his appointments. My daughter's therapist told me that she wants to diagnose her with an anxiety disorder. I don't think that my daughter has an anxiety disorder. She's been a happy child for most of her life, and she herself says that nothing bad has happened to her. She just feels overwhelmed. I think
Wait, hold on. So if you have anxiety, does that mean you've had it since you were born?
Oh, no. You're saying that's where this parent.
No. Sorry. Go ahead.
That's a good interruption. I was like, are we extrapolating that from? Got it.
Sorry.
I know I see
That's
the
what I
interruption
heard.
now. I see the interruption.
Okay, go ahead. Excuse me.
She just feels overwhelmed. I think she's gotten more anxious since she started seeing this therapist.
Of course.
She's also gotten more withdrawn and spends more time on the computer. I decided that we weren't seeing improvement, so last week I told my daughter we would be ending her appointments with that therapist and switching to a new one. My daughter started crying and told me that she really liked and trusted that therapist. However, neither my husband nor I have seen improvement in the 5 months she's been in therapy. Said I would consider sending her to a different doctor, but my daughter says she doesn't want to start all over. She said I'm cruel and the reason why she has an anxiety disorder. Like I said before, I don't think she has an anxiety disorder, but I don't want to be cruel to her. Am I the asshole?
Yes, ma'am.
You are the asshole. A 15-year-old has agency, has awareness, has processing skills, has quite a bit of abstract thought developing in that frontal lobe of hers. Why is she not a part of this conversation? I decided.
Right. You don't get to make that decision. And I know that goes right along with what we were talking about taking things away. When I say consequences or skills or whatever, right? Taking away the ability for her to make that decision. 15 is a really crappy age. I'm going to tell you. I have 3 children. 2 of them have passed the 15. Mm-hmm. I'm not ready for the other one to get there. 15
Give yourself a
is
break.
I hide in my room. I play on my games. I stay away from you. I'm no longer a preteen. I am no longer, but I'm also not accepted by the older teenagers. I am in limbo.
Yeah.
So therefore, I am figuring out this whole world. And if you are not going to be there to listen to me, it's okay as a parent because I don't want you to. Mm-hmm. So if if you don't want mom to listen to you, you're going to hide in your room.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, moms, they don't want to talk to you at 15. And so it doesn't mean that that therapist is not getting through to them. It means that that kid is still in that 15. Give her till she's 16. I promise she will start to come out a little bit because life will start to begin again for her. 15 is the cocoon. She's hiding.
And I want to emphasize that all of this is without mental health symptoms. This is completely normal development.
Absolutely.
This is healthy. We may not see it as productive.
Right.
But it's normal.
But that's why mom doesn't see this as an anxiety problem. And it doesn't necessarily mean we need a full-blown generalized anxiety disorder diagnosis with meds, which may or may not be true because you don't start at birth that way.
Right.
These are life challenges, right? She's going to throw this in your face and say it's your fault because you took this one person she feels comfortable with away from her. And so again, this is why I don't see teenagers. So keep going.
This is where my passion for teenagers comes from.
I love you teenagers, but I hate your parents. Sorry.
It's hard. Yeah. Stories like this, I feel like I could have written this. The number of teens that I've seen, and I saw mostly preteens, right? I was working at a middle school and
God bless you.
Loved that job. I miss that job sometimes. And the number of parent meetings I would sit, there's one in particular I'm thinking of. And if anyone from that middle school is listening and you were part of this meeting, you're going to remember, but I will not use names.
Good girl.
Context clues. A parent, we were recommending services, which is why I was in the room. I was serving as a short-term therapist until we could refer out for long-term care. And not necessarily psychiatric, just behavioral. Some CBT, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy, maybe. And the parent, as I was looking at the parent, moving my consent form, my very short consent form, it was 1 page, amazing, to her, as I was explaining the whole thing, she turns to her kid and says, "Do you want to go to therapy? Do you want to see Miss Tara?" And the child's answer was no. She was already in my office like every other week, just stopping by. So this was hilarious to me. And the parent says, we won't be consenting to services. I was like, this is an interesting conversation. So while I'm almost contradicting myself, right? While I do think that this 15-year-old should have agency in this conversation, or in the case, it was a younger child in the office at that time, we had given so many avenues for health and improvement and reducing suspension days and reducing any of the negative consequences that were showing up. And we were offering it, not to suggest it, but to be like, this is in your best interest for this to be documented that you're taking advantage of this very free service in school, no interruption. She's already in my office twice a week. Like, let's make this consensual here.
Well, that's where we're losing the point of why the kid needs somebody.
Yes.
Right? In that sense, the 15-year-old was already engaged. This 12 or 13-year-old was already engaged.
Yep.
Either way, the parent had to make a decision based on what is going on with that kid, right? Got a person willing and able right in front of you to see her. Do you know how hard it is to find a therapist that's willing and able and right there in front of you and ready to go in the school? So yeah, I think it's a misunderstanding of the point.
So you're ready for these edits? So yes. The original poster, OP, posted 2 edits. So I'll read both of them.
Okay.
Edit 1. A lot of you are talking about medications for my daughter. I just want to let you all know that I did ask her therapist about medications, and the therapist doesn't believe in giving medications. Okay. So edit 2. I know it was a long time ago, but when my mother sent me to a therapist, she told me it should have only taken 4 months. So guess what I did? Got myself situated after 4 months. Now I'm a happy adult. Sometimes it's your job as a parent to guide your child.
Okay. I do agree. There's your job to guide your child. I get that. We're not going to take that away from her. But first of all, who says anything happens in a timely manner in life?
Well, they said that.
Oh,
I became a happy adult because I had my 4 months in therapy. That's how long it was supposed to take.
Then she's got to do it her same way, right? I mean, because we're all exactly the same.
The same.
Right. Okay. ladies and gentlemen, we are not the same as our parents. We are not the same as our children. We have to let things happen in the natural course of how they need. If she's going to move her to another therapist anyway, it wasn't that she was going to just take her out of therapy altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Then, and the girl's okay with the therapist, she should have be able to continue. So yes, Mom, you're an asshole. Sorry.
Still an asshole. Now a little further down the asshole lane, if you ask me, just because the whole parent knows best has a place. But I didn't hear anything about the parent's background in therapy or medicine or where the root of their belief system is, besides the fact that I went to therapy as a kid and 4 months was more than enough. And now I'm a happy adult. Why can't my kid just be a happy adult at 15 years old?
Because she's not an adult.
But that's the question, right? Is this
Right.
4 months is enough? They got the skills that they need. And well, they said that it's getting worse, right? And anxiety often does get worse before it gets better because you're so aware of what is happening.
Right.
And now you're just so honed in as to what's going on with you and your brain.
Right.
Like learning about how your brain works can sometimes, it feels like brings more problems.
Right.
But it's that understanding.
Absolutely.
And over, what's the word for it? Over intellectualizing your own thinking and emotions.
Absolutely. That's when your head starts going spinning, right? Most therapy is going to get worse. You're going to get worse before you're going to get better.
Or it just feels worse. Yeah.
Well, I mean, agreed, right? It feels worse, or people around you think it's worse because, again, now you're paying attention to other people's behavior.
Yeah.
When you
Anytime
weren't
anytime I coach communication, I'm like, you can't unlearn this stuff. So the burden of recognizing bad communication is now on you. And that sucks. I'm so sorry, but you can't unlearn this.
You can't, right? Because you know what? Who can control you?
Yeah.
Who is in control, and what are you in control of? You're
Right.
only in control of yourself.
Yep.
Nobody else. Look at a toddler and tell me whether you're in control of that thing or not.
And what they have control of themselves.
Everything.
They have everyone's mood right in their little hands.
Right? Even an infant. We have zero control.
So the medication thing, I mean, as LCSWs, neither of us have MDs to prescribe. So it takes a lot for me to recommend medication. And usually I'm opening up the conversation about how they feel about medication before I'm recommending or referring to a psychiatrist, I mean. So they didn't give us any background on who the therapist is, what their background is. We don't even know where they're located in the world. So my westernized mind is obviously assuming that they're in America, because what else would I do? My little American brain assume everybody's from here. That's my own burden. Reddit has opened my mind up to that too. But recognizing that most therapists do not prescribe. And we don't want to prescribe if we think behavioral modifications will help. And with most 15-year-olds, most relatively healthy 15-year-olds, whether diagnosed or not, behavior switches, cognitive switches, reframing, things like that will work.
Right. And if you have a 15-year-old that is willing and able to talk to their therapist,
God bless them.
God bless that child and let them keep going, please.
Gosh, because that is to have an outlet. 15-year-olds aren't talking to their parents. So if they're talking to somebody, amazing.
Right. The things they're talking about to their friends is how they end up start cutting and start doing all those kind of things. So we want them with an adult who can give them some rational skills on how to self-regulate their emotions.
Correct. And if this story isn't about in schools, but to have that kind of support in a school system where they're spending a majority of their time. And if the stress isn't at home, it certainly is at school. So being able to be in a place where they can access that regulation and those coping skills, magnifique. All right. So it's my pedestal as to why I wish I still had that job. I'm going to send this episode to my former principal.
Oh, I love it. All right. So keep sending us those questions.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
I love it. And Tara will tell you our socials because, I'm terrible at that stuff. I'm old. So I want you to keep paying attention, keep giving us more, give us more to talk about. We love to hear it.
Yes. Absolutely. And just for those who were curious, the resounding judgment in the comments was this parent is the asshole.
Awesome.
Parent was the asshole. Had some really good, and that's I do like comments on stuff like this because it's some really good, well-rounded thinking and people pulling from their own personal experience and talking about that. So I'm a fan of that.
Good.
So yeah, sound off if you guys like the Reddit part of this, because I am already on it. So I'm collecting stories as I go. So if you like hearing these, if you want them shorter, if you want more, but this episode is full with just this one example. But you guys answering our questions on Instagram was amazing. So please continue to DM us stories or things that you want us to be curious about with you. Always open to guests too. So if you want to open up live with us about your experience or we can play recordings and stuff like that too. So our Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube is at Let's Be Real, Sheri and Tara. That's Sheri, Sheri. Always like to reiterate your spelling.
Thank you.
And then we do have email. We love receiving emails from you guys. And that's Let's Be Real with Sheri and Tara at gmail.com. Information in the show notes. If you see us on any of our socials, we have links to all of that stuff as well. So if you remember one, you got them all.
Awesome.
So we will catch you guys next time. And hopefully we get some ideas of where you guys want us to take this. Until then.